So I'll call to order the July meeting of the Extension Education, Arts, and Culture Committee. It is 1:02 p.m. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
We are.
Excellent.
Move to adopt the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or corrections or changes to take the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We have an agenda. Is there anyone here for public comment? We're such an exciting committee.
Did we adopt minutes?
We did not. Somehow we skipped over that. Yes, we need to adopt the minutes from last month.
I'll move to adopt the minutes.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The minutes are adopted. Communications. The only thing that didn't make it into all the stuff there that I got a copy of. If you remember, we did a major grant to the Little Eagle Arts Foundation back in December, January, February. And they've been having trouble getting their act together. And so they sent us a letter providing us an update of what's going on. And they're having some problems with the area in, I was going to say Badger. I can't remember the name of it now. That, yeah, or the place across the road, Bluffview. Right, and so they're looking at either extending it or they may have to return the money and reapply next year, changing their scope a bit of how it will take place. So just a heads up saying that's what's going to be going on with that. We'll probably put it on the agenda then for next month. Did I get all that right, Judy?
Yeah, she said, she went in length about, they've been trying for several months to engage the Bluffview youth, and they just can't really get traction on that or commitment. And so what they want to do is change the scope to do it
With a different area.
Partnering with them, they would do a whole chunk youth.
Right, and that's why we could discuss it next month, but I personally, I think if you're going to change the scope, you need to refund the grant and start over and apply again for next season. So that was that correspondence and communications. Did you have any others, Judy?
No,
Nope.
just that.
Okay.
Church or some kind of
Okay, yeah, that's, I'll get to that later. The usual things we get of somebody sending us their newsletter or thanking us for a donation or whatever. Communications. On to 7. Review extension budget report and approval of the invoices report for the extension and arts. Those are attached in Granicus. And about the only thing I see on here that I have to live with is why are we paying for the ICC meeting supplies? The donuts and that.
We did.
Well, technically part of this is under the administration's budget, I know, but.
So we only paid for, we did use some pesticide applicator funds, which I know sounds silly, but they're not part of the general fund. So they're earned income that from generating this test that we give. So we were able to use the money from that to buy just the orange juice and the, yeah. Tim McCumber did get the rest of the donuts and things like that, but it was kind of we were setting it up for him, so.
So we got the bill. Well, that's my 2 cents on the invoices. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
With your indulgence, as somebody new to this, could you give me an example of what these contracts for $70,000 are? A little more color what that's about?
I believe that's the arrangement we have with the UW extension.
For
Okay.
what?
For the educators.
So he's probably confused on that they're not county employees, that they're state employees.
Yes, the extension educators that we have, such as our gardener and the rest, are technically, they are employees of UW. They're not employees of the county. And we are contracting for their services and extension and education. And all of those are 50-50, okay, where half of their cost is the county and half is the state of Wisconsin.
And what disciplines are they doing?
So
We're talking about the gardener, the,
horticulture,
right,
and then we have 4-H and youth development. And then we have Amanda, who is human development and relationships. We have community development, which is Morgan, which you would have to kind of talk with him about the
Yeah.
different programs and
I don't know
stuff.
about,
They-
the last month or month before, we had the org chart showing all the,
I'll have
yeah,
to look
that's
for
the
that and see if I
category
can
that-
send you
I
one.
have that handout.
yeah, that kind of describes.
Not to be
it.
critical, just asking for.
Yeah, I
for
understand.
information.
And then the only two that are county employees are the administrative. So Jen and I are county employees.
Okay.
And then the others are state employees. We do have Foodwise, which is a federal program, and we don't pay their salaries, they utilize our space.
So these are budgeted expenses, and they're, I think, paid just once a year?
Actually, every 6 months.
Oh, every
So
6
they
months, twice a
break it
year.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Great, yep.
Thank you.
Good clarification.
we
And
could
the
talk
other-
about Morgan later, but I mean, otherwise I'm fine with it.
And Jeff will be here next month, because I think that's all really good.
Yeah, I've
Knowledge
got,
for you.
that's the thing I probably should have explained at the beginning. Jeff had another meeting that took precedence, and he left me some notes on when we get to the director's report, but he apologizes for not being here today. Tim Thielen, is he out there?
Yes, I am.
Wow, okay. I just happened to look up at the board and saw your name up there and said, wow. he
Yeah,
made it.
I can't see you, nor you me,
Well, we don't have any
but I
clothes
can
on.
hear you. How did you know? Anyway. No, I am here.
I move to pay the invoices.
Okay, in the amount of 72,958.82, have I got that correct? We have okay, we have a motion and a second to pay the invoices. Are there any other questions on the invoices?
Val.
Val?
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of paying the bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Also attached in Granicus is our budget report. And the year-to-date line items. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those? All right, I don't hear anything. We shall move on to item 8. As I skip ahead. And item 8 is welcome and introduction of Stacy Parsons, our new 4-H educator, who happens to be right here.
Hello. I started about 3 weeks ago. Very excited to be on board. I live in Baraboo here with my husband. We live on a dairy farm. We have 2 young kids, a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. I taught middle school before this when I lived in Wisconsin, so I taught here at Baraboo Middle School. And I worked in extension before setting up 4-H clubs on military installations. So I've
That's experience.
I had some 4-H experience, and I was a lifelong 4-Her myself. So I'm glad that my green heart gets to be back in extension and to be able to be working with the Sauk County youth.
Well, you got
just
the
in a
fair
different
coming up.
capacity. We've started second day in doing fair prep, and so fair's next week. We're very excited to meet everybody at the fair. What a great way to, it's like my welcome party to the county by throwing us a fair. But no, we're gearing up for fair. We were able to hire a fair assistant. We usually have a summer intern for the whole summer, but because I'm still learning all the ropes, we hired him for a shorter period of time to help out with all the happenings that happen at the fair. We got Cloverbud camps. That's our 4-H camps for like kindergarten through 3rd grade. We might have those in August. So we've getting the ball rolling and trying to get communication out to the families on just all the great things that we're going to be having coming up this year. So
Good. Welcome aboard.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Stacy?
Making
Okay.
it easy on my first time.
That's right. So item 9, the area director updates, and as I mentioned, Jeff Hoffman could not make it today, but he left me some notes. They're brief. Let's see, I was going to tell the committee that there is a verbal agreement to start the hiring process for a regional core and soil educator and a regional livestock educator for Sauk and the surrounding counties. Sauk's contribution for the educators will remain the same as what we currently have in the 2022 budget, so he does not have to ask for more money for the 2023 budget for these hires. And that's pretty much all Jeff had to say at the last minute. Anybody have any questions, as if I could answer them? Okay.
Well, I just want, he didn't specify then how many counties would be involved.
No, usually it's 2 or 3, I think.
I know, but
Yeah.
didn't know which it was gonna be.
No, he doesn't say it here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Get my notes in
So
order.
those regions are set up at the universities.
Okay.
I don't think that got recorded. There's a nod over here.
Oh, okay. What were you asking me, or
Just anybody.
just
who
putting it
knows.
out who could answer it? Yeah, I don't recall the details on that either, other than I remember they're specializing now.
Yeah.
Item 10. Where's 10? Here it is right in front of me. Discussion and action item for Amanda Caro to attend the NEAFCS conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I believe Amanda could not be here today. Is that correct?
Correct, she's over in Green Lake.
Yeah, she's busy working someplace else right now for us. But she left me notes on this. In September of this year, they'll have the opportunity to travel with 2 colleagues to Raleigh, North Carolina, to present research findings from the Fatherhood Initiative Project at the annual National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, which is what NEAFCS stands for, at their conference. As one of the co-authors of this research, Amanda will have the opportunity to share how regional areas like Sauk contributed to the statewide research into how fathers as parents need support, education, and outreach as equal and separate parents to support the well-being of children. Amanda will also be accepting an individual award for the Eastern region of NEAFCS for her research on agricultural community health through the We Cope curriculum. Additionally, she's a team recipient along with fellow colleagues for 3rd place Central Region winner for the Parent Connect curriculum and the 1st place Central Region winner for Encouraging Financial Conversations curriculum. She's now 4 years with Extension and has not used any professional development funds to date. She's been able to utilize scholarships and grant funding, largely available through the state funding or COVID funding, understanding to seek professional training and development. This is her first request for use of available training funds. She also has applied for grants to help fund her travel and will know the outcome of those applications sometime in August. The NEAFCS conference will take place September 11th through 15th. She will attend presentations by other National Extension attendees and take the opportunity to learn from other colleagues. And then, of course, she'll present her findings from the conference at our October committee meeting. And she's requesting our approval for this out-of-state travel. Actually, all that I read is in Granicus. I should have just told you to look there.
I just added it on there because she did not know it and be able to attend until today, so.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, am in favor of allowing her to travel, so I will make the motion that we approve her travel request.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this?
I have a comment on it.
Go ahead, Tim.
2 points. In this, one, I was a little put off that that Raleigh was misspelled. I personally think that if you're asking somebody for money, that you better make doggone sure that you've got, the spelling is correct, so that you show that you are a professional and that you're going to use any amount of funds wisely. That's one. Number two is, I personally don't think it's a good argument to say that, well, I've never asked you for money, so therefore I think you should give me money now. That should be irrelevant. I mean, either you're asking for money for something that makes a lot of sense, which this does, or you don't. So I'm not saying that I don't agree with her going. I actually agree that with her going. I just think, however, that quite frankly, that she needs some coaching as to how to ask for things sometimes.
I'm sure you're right, Tim, and that this is probably her first attempt at something like this, which is,
Yeah, there's no doubt of that. So I'd appreciate it if someone would pass that on to her in a positive spin. This was not, it was not meant to be, I did not mean it to be Debbie Downer, but I just wanted her to just be aware that I thought the letter came off a little off. So that's just my opinion.
thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
And Lynn, you were asking about the dollar amount?
Yeah, is there a dollar amount attached to this?
I have no idea what it is.
I thought it was $500.
So at this point, she has to ask for permission to even consider traveling. That's part of, I believe that's a rule of the county, to ask if anybody's going to be traveling outside of the county or outside of the state, I believe, Tim. They have to ask for permission to even consider doing so. At this point, she's not really asking for money, it's an approval.
To ask for money.
We do have some professional development funds that are within our budget that are divided up amongst the educators that she probably will use some of it for, but at this point, she's still trying to get funding through grants. And so I don't know how much the money would be, but I can tell you that at this point, just to even go and apply and put her application in, she needs approval.
This looks just like the thing that came before the county board about the chairman going to Colorado for the,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
One reality, it may cost the county nothing, but if she got grants and we said no, she couldn't go. So it's kind of a
yeah,
weird
it's
thing,
just
but
a rule.
it would have been also helpful to say, at the most, if I get permission to go, it's gonna cost this. It's again, maybe not having the experience of what to do.
Yeah, and I think by the time you take in the fee for the conference and the airfare, you should be able to come fairly close to
Sure,
some sort of a ballpark number.
Right.
say it's gonna be this or less.
yeah.
Well, I think you'll wind up with some kind of a bracket or.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of the-
Expenditures
one
will
of-
always rise to exceed appropriations,
Yeah.
so.
Same
One
thing
of the
happens
other
with-
realities too is him raises some good points, but I think a lot of the agents haven't done anything out of state because of the pandemic. So,
Right.
we probably will see this occasionally more often now in the next few.
Rebecca?
Just for formality's sake too, I guess I would personally, being kind of new, appreciate her just saying, this is the one step necessary for me to even consider. Then we'd all be informed of the
Yeah, that
situation. And maybe
was
she doesn't know because
process.
she hasn't done it, but
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, because she came to me today and was like, I'm not gonna be able to be at a meeting today, so she prepared this and probably gave you more than enough information, but not the right information,
Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
is what, yeah.
But she does say, I request the committee's approval for this out-of-state travel. And that's all we're doing today.
Is there a
That's
letter or
true.
something that they're looking at?
Yeah, we have,
Yeah, it's the attachment on Granicus.
he basically read it to you, Lynn.
But yeah, if you refresh it, there's a attachment.
Is there any other discussion?
I'd move to,
Oh, I think we had a motion and a second already, so,
We'll let you have the next one.
From who, I didn't hear 'em.
I didn't either, but that's.
Brian
already been
Hazard and
decided.
Val McCullough.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear a second.
any other discussion? In that case, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Let's see, item 10. Extension educator reports, of which the first is Morgan. You could sit back there or come up here.
Well, I got all the.
You've got the laptop all
way
set.
getting up here, so we'll just do it here. Yeah. So I could report on any of many things. Paid a visit to Lynn and his team up at Delona, at the town hall as part of the drinking water promotional program. We promote drinking water quality and testing in 3 townships in the county every year. And so in collaboration with, I forget what they're called now, but I call it Conservation Planning and Zoning, but it's a different group now. But Justine Bula and I are working together to do that. And it's really nothing more than promoting people to test their private wells. I made the analogy to Lynn and his group up there that I got a letter recently that said, hey, it's time for your colonoscopy. Whoa, tell me more. I'm eager to do that one. And that's kind of the same deal for testing your well water, right? As long as the water runs from the tap and isn't discolored, we're good, but we're probably not. So it's good to test those wells, and that's all it is a promotional program. Another thing that I'm up to, I had a chat with Brent Miller the other day and Melanie Platt-Gibson about doing a strategic plan for the county. And that's something that my predecessor, Jenny Erickson, was always very good at and very experienced at. And so, but she has disappeared. She's vacated the chair, and now I'm sitting in that chair. So that's a new challenge that may come up in September.
This is the strategy meeting where we all get together. I think we did it 2-3 years ago at the campus, was it? I don't know if that's the same thing you're talking about.
I don't know. I don't know historically what had been done. There's a document in there from 2006. So, I mean, I've got to scramble around and find out some of that material too. But the thing I wanted to talk about today, because we're actively planning for the new version of Sauk County Institute of Leadership. We're in the lull right now. We start again in September, take in a new cohort starting in September and run through May of 2023. And it's all really, really exciting. Actually, I'm in this job because of the Sauk County Institute of Leadership. Probably have told you the story that a friend of mine who worked for Harley Davidson in Milwaukee, his boss put him through a $7,000 Living as a Leader program in Milwaukee, and I watched the guy change over the course of that 12-month period of time, and I said, I want some of that, but not for $7,000 bucks. And at the time, was living in New Berlin, as I still am, and was friendly with Lynn Zick, who the late Lynn Zick, who is no longer in the office, no longer on the earth, but she was a friend in the extension office, and she said, well, you should go through the Sauk County Institute of Leadership. I said, well, I don't live here. She said, you used to. And she said, you still come to see your mother. And what they didn't say was anybody who's got a check and real money can go through the Sauk County Institute of Leadership, right? And so for the low price of $750 and 9 visits to Baraboo over the course of that period of time, I went through skill and graduated in 2014. And it's a bold statement to say it changed my life. It certainly did not, but opened my eyes to a lot of things and a lot of opportunities that I didn't think were out there for me. And golly, I really liked it. 2 years later, the phone rang. The lady who was the facilitator said, hey, you want a job? Because I'm leaving this one. And there was the opportunity, right? There's a little on the door, and I opened the door and came to Extension for what was supposed to be 1 day a week and worked alongside Jenny, and skill was my deal. And so, and I love it. Really, it feels like the right work. And Tim Rip, sitting all the way in the back of the room, was a recent graduate, and if you have questions about the efficacy of the program, ask Tim, because I'm a poor judge, because I'm biased profoundly.
Say that the alumni from this latest class has enjoyed the class so much that we are continuing on our own. So that says a lot about the group and the camaraderie that it builds.
So a quote from two members of the 2020 class at the midpoint, and it always makes you suck a breath when somebody says, well, this course isn't what I thought it was supposed to be. And you go, and the people pleaser in me says, oh, well, what did we do wrong? Well, no, what we didn't do was provide them a checklist for leadership, right? The checklist that says public speaking skills, and this is what a manager does, and these are the things to do. Instead, we opened their eyes to their own possibilities, create a container, create a space with this program that pulls back the curtain on Sauk County, lets them see various aspects of the county, and also pull back the curtain on their own potential. And that to me is thrilling. I feel like I'm an arsonist, right? Standing in front of the group one time a month and just tossing matches and seeing who will ignite. And sometimes you know immediately, and sometimes it's a long ways down the track. So yeah, it's a cool deal. And the mission, we've gone through the strategic planning process, and the mission is to inspire and engage creative leaders working to build a stronger, more vibrant Sauk County community. And actually, there are two guys that I want to mention. I call them wise guys. The only true wise guy with a last name of Wise is on the right hand of the picture. And Ira Koplow, who's not in the picture, but was a leader in Idaho Falls, Idaho when I was there. This guy was energetic. He was a leader in the community. He was the head honcho on the Chamber of Commerce in a community of 45,000 people, second largest community in Idaho at the time. And he was a go-getter. And years after I left and he left, I reached out to him via the miracle that is the internet. And I said, Ira, what's the secret to your success for community leadership? And he had charisma, he had energy, he had vision, he had all of these things. In the course of that conversation, he says, the greatest achievement that I had when I was in Idaho Falls was starting a community leadership program. And that to me was telling, because this guy was really effective. And he said it introduced people to agriculture, it introduced people to law enforcement, introduced people to the community at large. And at the time, that leadership thing wasn't even in my consciousness, wasn't even in my awareness. I could not see myself as a leader. But that statement from Ira Koplow stayed with me about the importance of that. And for a guy that had achieved so many things, that he put his finger on that one and said, community leadership program was my crowning achievement in that community. Greg Wise was once in the role that I'm in now, community development, here in Sauk County. And he said, you know what, I had a lot of projects going on in the county and nobody out there to put legs under them to make them happen. And he said, so I realized the need for a leadership program was profound. And so he put together an advisory board, including Craig Culver and other leaders in the county. And they got together and they worked several collaborative relationships and stitched together Sauk County Institute of Leadership in 1998. And so he's wise in more ways than one. He comes back every year and talks at our board boot camp. And he told that story, and I thought that was really the nub of why Skill came into being, was really to solve a problem in the county, to find people out there to make things happen. And so for me, it's really cool to be able to do that. This is last year's class. There's Tim on the far right of that picture, smiling then and smiling today. And last year's class had 18 people in it. The image on the right-hand side is from our annual report, and there are over 400 alumni. And if you read the list of people in there, you'll say, oh yeah, leader, 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 leader. And a lot of people you don't know, but a lot of people you do know in the county. And whether Skill activated them or not, who knows? But nonetheless, they have a link back to this great program. This is Natural Bridge State Park down near Leland. And the job of the program is to bridge leadership development, personal development, with challenges in the county. Like I say, pull back the curtain and show people what's going on here in Sauk County. And it's a compliment when people say, well, I never knew that. You think, oh yeah, Sauk County Institute of Leadership, you do now. And that's really cool. And so this is too many words on a slide, but basically I want to share with you that we have several potential topics for the leadership development, personal development piece of this that go into helping people see themselves as leaders. Al Anderson has presented many, many times to Skill, and one of his profound statements, I think it was the year that I went through Skill, and it sticks with people every year, is you don't need a title to be a leader. And people come away with that realization, you go, oh, yeah, I am. I have every potential to make a difference. And so that's just a list of things that we can activate in our programming for the year to give people a different sense of themselves and their potential. And I won't go through the list there, but some of those are really, really powerful. In the upper right hand, in that column, on the right-hand column, Authentic Leadership is a powerful session in December where we invite people to tell their crucible stories. Where did you come to a crossroads in your life, a real challenge, and tell us the story, because that's where change happens. And it's a session that's really vulnerable, really powerful, and at the end of that session, the group is a different group. And they come together, it's a real neat bonding session. A leader mentor of mine once said, I was talking about leadership development and my experience in this program. This is before I was holding the steering wheel on Skill. And he said, leadership is all about self-awareness. And he said, the question you have to ask yourself and others, what kind of a wake do you leave with other people? And most of us at some point or another have had a bad boss. And there might have been turbulence in the workplace. My wife is a hospital administrator at Waukesha Memorial Hospital down in Milwaukee, and there's a lot of clashing of swords and egos in the hallways, and she comes home shaking her head just talking about the leadership in that place at various levels is very turbulent, and yet it doesn't have to be, right? So the invitation is self-awareness. Ask yourself, what kind of a wake do you leave as a leader? A public speaker, professional speaker named Terry Paulson once said, and I'll run the risk of offending somebody here, but Terry Paulson said, if one person tells you that you're a horse's ass, he said, you get angry. If two people tell you you're a horse's ass, he said, get worried. And if three people tell you you're a horse's ass, get a saddle. And that's all about self-awareness, right? And so what kind of a wake do we leave as a leader? And hopefully, at the end of the 9 months with Skill, self-awareness has been elevated for people to come to a realization of where they are. And then the backstage view of Sauk County. Lots of subjects that we can touch on. We don't touch on all of those every year. The importance of agriculture. And we have Serge Koenig come and talk about conservation. And Serge is powerful and passionate. The nonprofit board boot camp. Interesting, this year we had Robin White, and we had Greg Wise on that board, and Tim Becker from Reedsburg. Apologies to Tim. He's was the police chief, and now I think he's the city administrator, the mayor. Yeah. Anyway, he said in his program, look, there's always opportunities in communities for leadership, and you don't have to be on the city council, and you don't have to be the mayor, but there are committees. And that pinged with several people in the group, and I know of at least one who reached out and said, you know what, I'll help. And now she's on a zoning committee. So the immediate effect of the invitation for leadership was there and action was taken. So a variety of subjects that are really interesting that are going on in the county, and hopefully areas that need filling, right? I call this a moving experience. The areas in yellow are the areas that we have reached to, the venues that we have used, but we have also other venues in the county that can be used to hold these meetings. And Lynn, I was eyeing with envy and counting the number of seats available in the Delona Town Hall the other day. I thought, maybe people need to come to Delona for a skill meeting. Probably not, but that I'm always looking for possible venues. I think the stage at the Al Ringling Theater would be a fantastic venue for a skill meeting because we're in that historical setting. So we're always brainstorming about where we can host meetings, but the objective is to move people around the county and introduce them to areas of the county that they haven't seen. And that's always rewarding when people say, I've never seen this place before. Just a few shots of activities that we do. This is at the retreat that we hold at Durward's Glen. Center of the picture on the right is Master Sergeant Rocco Sylvester. He's a recruiter, Sauk Prairie based, works out of Baraboo, comes and does a team building exercise, but also the most powerful part of his work is he shows us about the importance of an after action review. So what was supposed to happen, what did happen, and what will you do the next time around? That reflective piece is so important as far as moving forward with an organization or with a plan. There's Jenny Erickson on the left, in that left-hand photograph, and she's working with my co-pilot on this program, Ellen Klima. Ellen helps out with all aspects of the program, is a great teammate. I've been lucky to learn from as an understudy for Jenny, and lucky to work with Ellen. There's the big man himself, Jeff Jelinek, the past director of emergency preparedness for Sauk County, now retired. At least for the skill program, he'll leave a big hole because he was a big personality with a big job and a big perspective that was very, very helpful for us to understand emergency preparedness. We spend a day on diversity, and upper left-hand photograph, Lance Talmadge comes and talks about Ho-Chunk culture. He's always engaging and just so real. Talks about the history of Ho-Chunk and Ho-Chunk culture. The center photograph is the only speaker that we pay to come to Skill, and we pay him because he's darn good. His name is Santo Carfora out of Janesville. Santo has a great program on diversity. And there on the right was the class representative speaker is Antoine Hallman, a pastor here in the Baraboo area, who gave us a profound and powerful perspective on diversity as well. Great to have him on the team. Oops, jumping forward here. Professor Steve Deller, economist from UW-Madison, comes up and gives us a tailored program on economics in Sauk County. And there in the lower right-hand photograph is the panel. Dr. John McAuliffe is already agreed to come back again and talk about substance abuse, the opioid epidemic in Sauk County. Former Chief of Police Jerry Struns from Sauk Prairie sat on that panel, as did Sarah Jesse, public health educator from Sauk County. A powerful, powerful exercise and a great example of things that people don't know about this county but need to. We spent a day, a creativity day. We toured, just crossed the line into Iowa County, went into the American Players Theater, and you'd think, hang on, what are you guys going to a theatrical place to, you're supposed to be learning about leadership. But what we learned at APT was about collaboration between teams and what it takes to put on a production. Has great leadership, great collaboration, and lots of complicated moving parts to make an exceptional organization be exceptional. And for me, the tour was really, really interesting when we walked past this piece of paper, right-hand photograph there, tacked to a bulletin board, and I said to our tour guide, I said, hey, Sarah, what's the deal with this? And she said, well, that's the APT values, APT, American Players Theater, the values of the organization, and it's handwritten, right? So what people did was get together in a voluntary meeting. We're going to have this meeting about the values of this organization. Come if you want to. And what do you see as the values of this organization, and write it down. And she said, this is not just a piece of paper exercise that gets thrown in a drawer. She said, we refer to these values every day. Does that fit with our values? And I thought that was a profound and really, really practical way to approach values. Lower right-hand photograph there, Al Anderson, the very versatile, irrepressible Al Anderson. Asked him to talk about creativity and leadership, and he not only rose to the challenge, but he hit the ball out of the park. So we had a day on creativity. And then I have a whole series of photographs of the Baraboo, Sauk County area that I call New View and New You. And the invitation is to see things in a new way, and that's what creativity is all about. Look, I'm droning on here, but this was a session on conflict up at Boo U. And upper left-hand picture, Professor Kurt Miney and Mike Mossman came and talked about the reuse plan for Badger Army Ammunition Plant ground. And the conflict, the old conflict from when the land grab took place in the 40s that carried forward in all of the various factions that were rubbing up against each other. And it was a really, really interesting look at how they managed all of that to reuse that property and who had to play good in the sandbox. The right-hand photograph is interesting because, for me, it illustrates the importance of the group being their own educators. Right? So we spent a big session on conflict, and the guy there in the plaid shirt is a really, really interesting fellow that I judged him from the first day, and I judged him wrong. He's got tattoos up to his neck. Right? He's got that big burly beard, and he's a real quiet guy, and I completely missed the mark on this guy. Completely missed the mark on this guy. Brian Kerr is his name. Interesting fella. That plaid shirt was once tight because that fella, believe it or not, once weighed 500 pounds. 500 pounds. And today, in that picture, he weighs 208. So there's a story by itself. Right? There's a remarkable story. But we're talking about conflict in this session, and Brian stands up at the end of it and he says, you know what? I welcome conflict. He said, because conflict is a place to start a conversation. And in that moment, in that statement, he changed the perspective of the entire group. And several times in the evaluations at the end of the skills session, people pointed to that comment as having shifted their minds. So the group becomes the leaders themselves, the educators themselves. In the left-hand photograph, for the first time ever, we had an alumni lunch that was attended probably by 60 people. And 18 of those were the class, but there were another group of people, and the lady in the red was Lee Culver. So Lee Culver came and talked about the Culver's story and leadership. So that was really, really good. I'm just going to move through here. White Mountains County Park, a gem, and there's Serge Koenig talking about sustainable agriculture. Paul Walter, the Oracle of Historical for Sauk County, talked about the size of the tourism engine in the county, and that was a real eye-opener. A little bit of the history of the Dells, but those are huge numbers too, right? Huge numbers in terms of the economic contribution to the county. And in our last session, we had Jay Salinas and Donna Newworth there in upper left-hand photograph, Worm Farm Institute, talk about their journey with the worm farm, some 20-year journey, not depending on tourism. They created this thing from the ground up to attract people to Sauk County and to see a new view of the county. I think it's a fascinating story. The irrepressible Cliff Thompson, former superintendent at Sauk Prairie. In the right-hand photograph on the right in the blue shirt, we had Cliff as an opening keynote speaker at the retreat and a closing keynote speaker at the end. And that guy's a power station all by himself. And then the two ladies in the other photograph making it last. We did an exercise of review for the whole program, and the insights that were gained were tremendous. Photograph in the upper left, compliments of Val McAuliffe, handed Belle the camera. Those were our presentation to the board, Sauk County Board. And look at the happy faces on the Health Department for receiving the Skill Leadership Award. When you sing to the unsung heroes, it lifts their spirits, and it certainly did there for what they did through the COVID epidemic. And then there's their class picture. So, closing, I said I misjudged Brian Kerr, and so really that judgment piece was educational for me. And he sent me an email about the power of skill for him. So Brian is an analyst and auditor for Quartz Insurance down in Sauk Prairie, and I think the catalyst word is important because Brian has decided to go to graduate school to become a behavioral psychologist, get his graduate degree in behavioral psychology, and go back to Sauk County and make a difference. And so sometimes the catalyst is going to work in ways that we can't even imagine. So if we create a great container with skill and are respectful of people and show them their possibilities and what's happening in the county, who knows what can happen. And so it's just like walking through a doorway. The iconic doorway out at Devil's Lake, but the door is there, and if we choose to walk through it through skill, it's really, really a thrill. And so for the first time in my memory, in the 7 years I have been with Extension, we filled the cohort at the deadline. You know, usually in summer we're begging people to come to skill. We've got 20 now. We had one person who said, I want to take it for a second time around, which is a huge compliment. And so, yeah, we're going to have a great year, and it's just going to get bigger, better, fitter, faster. And with that, a-ba-dee, a-ba-dee, a-ba-dee. That's all, folks.
Thank you, Morgan. Questions for Morgan? Yeah.
As I've watched this, and it has been from the far periphery, it has really grown in a way, not that it's gotten bigger, but it's fleshed out in a way that I don't remember it being early on.
So is that a statement or question?
I'm asking you to respond to that statement.
Yeah. I can speak personally that it's one thing to hand somebody a menu and say, these are the things that we hope you learn. But I think in the evidence from Brian's quote there at the end, I think the connection piece, and Tim can back me up here, but I think the connection piece is the difference maker. And look, the guy that you're married to, that's his quote about substance abuse. What's the opposite of addiction? It's not sobriety, it's connection. And so I think humans are hardwired for connection, for acknowledgement, for seeing, for being seen, and I believe that's the difference maker. And if I feel like I can offer an environment that is encouraging, inviting, safe for engagement and connection, then that difference will be made. And an exciting feature of the new program, of the coming program, is that I made a statement. I said, I think I need to make more of an effort to be more of a coach, more engaging with the program. Yep, it's going to be time intensive to do that, but I've seen the return on that investment. And I made that comment. On a regular basis, I'm engaging with skillsters from the last class. And one of those is a local physician, Cheryl Geckerman, who went through the class in 2020, and she has just taken a year-long, expensive, extensive coaching program at UW-Madison. And she needs hours of coaching to get a certification. And so I just floated this idea out there just as talk about the importance of connecting and coaching. And she said, I need hours of engagement. She said, maybe I can help. And so where this thing is going is that she will offer as an add-on 4 hours of professional coaching to any who want to partake at $25 an hour. So it's a $100 add-on to have a professional coach as part of the skill offering. And so the connection piece is going to ratchet up both from me and from outsiders, and that'll take us to yet another level. Without adding anything more to the curriculum, because it's already jammed, right? It's got stretch marks, it's so full. But I think the connection piece is critical. And look, your lovely husband does that every day in his work, and he knows that the medicine doesn't come from the pharmacy. The medicine comes from the connection. And so I'm following in his footsteps and trying to engage that and lift the program even more so. Long-winded answer, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Alan?
Just had a comment, and it's a little bit of history. When Greg White started this county program, it was the first county in the state to have a county-wide leadership program. Many communities had them, Leadership Wausau, Leadership Madison, Milwaukee, and they tended to be leadership. Some of it was sort of my community leadership, and a lot of it was business leadership. And Greg's focus was on helping small communities find leaders to do a better job. And it's grown and expanded and struggled a little bit too. It was I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago where they shut it down for a year to redo the curriculum. And Jenny Erickson and Morgan had worked on that, and it's really a much better program. And that's partly because of Morgan's leadership too. So it is and has made a difference. It will continue to do. I'm really proud that Sauk County is engaged in this. Maybe 20 other counties have since copied, and some are excellent, some are struggling. But I think this is the stellar one in the state.
Okay, anybody else?
What would you like to say about it?
I would say that it was a tremendous experience. Morgan is a very dynamic and influential leader in this class. It really, truly, for me, was about discovery, right? It's leadership class, but you're discovering things about yourself, you're discovering things about your partner, you're discovering things about the county and all the players in the county and the various aspects of that. It was much more than what I anticipated too. I don't know if I had any specific expectations going into it, because I'd never really taken a leadership class like this before. But it was a great experience, and it's reinforced my commitment in my community. I don't live in Sauk County, I live in Columbia County, I live in Lodi, and I am an alder person for the city. It reinforced my commitment to that role that I'm playing in my community, along with a lot of the other roles that I have. I also coach, I run a small business, I do a lot of things, but it was dynamic in so many different ways it's hard to explain. And I know Morgan's presentation maybe felt a little stuff, but it's you can't just define this program simply. It's very dynamic, and it touches people personally. I mean, that's it. It affects you. It changes you. So it's great. I'd highly recommend it to anybody. I'd love to go through it again. But that's what I said in the first place, right? There's a large majority of our graduating group. I'd say there's maybe only, well, Brian, because he's going out of town, and a handful of others just due to commitments we're going to continue on a monthly basis, just getting together, reinforcing these things that we've learned, and finding new ways to continue to expand our own leadership goals. And that's all because of the start Morgan gave us. So,
Talking about teachers teaching, the group teaching. So Tim's an alder person, and one exercise between 2 sessions was to attend a local government meeting and observe, and then come back and report your findings. So Tim said, well, he said, I'm an alder person in Lodi. He said, so that's part of my job. And he said, the disappointment for me is people don't come. People complain, but people don't come to the meetings. And so there's a trigger there, and more than one person on the evaluation after that session said, I realize I have to do something, right? And so here you are, right? County Board of Supervisors, busy people, but you're doing something. And so it was really encouraging for me to see evaluations for people saying, I realize I need to do something. And so we just start the fire. And
That was a powerful session, yeah. I actually just had that same conversation with my in-laws and relatives this past weekend over 4th of July, actually. They were complaining about things in their community. I said, well, you gotta show up. Even like this meeting we're in right now, right? Public input, who's here, right? And so we really stress that and the commitment that you need to get involved. I mean, I'm an alderperson, I'm on the council, I'm on finance, I'm the chair of the Parks Committee. You know, it isn't just a one hat there either, and it really takes people to get involved, as you guys all know, because you're here. So that was a powerful session.
Anyway,
Good.
enough for me, unless
Yeah,
there are
let's
more
move on.
questions or comments.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
It's thrilling to be part of it and
Okay, thank you, Morgan.
fires.
Back to our agenda. Item 12 is the review of the Arts and Culture Budget Report. You have those attached in Granicus.
Yes, and the one change that you will notice from last month is that Carrie Bagan did add in the $5,000 that
Was carried forwarded
was
from
carried
last year.
forward that wasn't showing up. I don't know that it's in the exact, I was looking at it and I think she put it in the, she put it in the major grant line item. But we have been giving out more mini grants, so you'll see the negative and it, but we're trying to keep it true to what the expense is. But it will offset each other and according to my records, we still have $5,100 in grant funds total between the,
Unspent yet, you mean?
yes, that can be spent,
Right.
available.
Anyone have any questions? All right, I'll move on. I think the next is, good idea grants. I knew that was coming up next. So, item 13, discussion of possible action of good idea grant applications, of which we have two, both of them theater related. The very first one, item A in your attachment there, Caro from the Sauk Prairie Theater Guild is hoping will help fund their production that they've got coming up.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this good idea grant. Anybody have any questions? No? Sure, comments, questions, go ahead.
Excuse me. I thought they had a nice description of the applicant. The review and the judging criteria were met for the most part. And I feel that it's got good creativity aspect, public reach, and community engagement.
Good. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of granting this application, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. The second one was with the Cal Center, who is presenting Missoula's Children Theater, which I remember when I was involved with the AL, we had many times over there. Anyone care to make a motion on this one?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Val, second by Rebecca to approve it. Questions or comments? And I'll tell you, it's probably an old, but there's a very old DVD floating around the libraries probably called The Little Red Truck. That's all about the Missoula Children's Theater and what they do, and it's a fascinating little video. Rebecca?
I just want to make a comment on this one, especially because I felt that it was nice to see the season sponsor, the $1,000, the utility commission with 500, the 3D with 500, and it seems that, you know, it's nice that we're a
Community.
partner, but that they're supported by some serious local entities.
Yeah, the community is getting involved. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approving this grant, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That grant got approved. Item 14 is our next meeting date, which is tentatively for August 3rd, 2022, same time, same place. Does anyone have any questions on that or requests?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Or any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Tim.